Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you have seen my last reading vlog, you might notice that I've literally gone straight from filming the end of that video to the beginning of this new video, and I'm just going to continue in the same vein. What I've been doing is reading books for Women in Translation Month. Exclusively reading Women in Translation this month, and I've been picking the books as I go from this cup. And this is the start of another reading vlog. I've been really enjoying reading this way, just picking the books as I go. Again, I don't know if this is going to be a mostly book heavy vlog or whether I'm going to put some live stuff in as well. Yeah. Who knows, we're just gonna see what the rest of the month will take us. And yeah, now I'm just gonna pick another book. Let's scribble around in our cup. There we go, let's do this one. So this is a Garréta music, which I actually think is a book that Charlotte recommended in her Women in Translation Month recommendations video. Hold on, if I remember correctly. Yes, it is. So this is a Garréta music by Bae Suah. It is translated by Deborah Smith, so I think that means it's from Korean. And I know very little of this book other than I just wrote it down when Charlotte recommended this. So yeah, I'm just gonna go into it blindly and see what it is. And I'll report back to you when I've read some more or when I've finished it. So I did start a Garréta music, but I'm gonna say it's a DNF. At least for now. I read about 15 pages or so, and there's just something about the writing that is too abstract or too philosophical for me right now. It's just not something that I'm in the mood for at the moment. Maybe it's something I will pick up another day, but for now I'm putting it aside. So I'm gonna pick another book, and in case you didn't see my last video, I do want to make sure I read enough from my own TBR, so I want at least every other book to be from my physical TBR, which is right behind me. That's why I sat down here. And a Garréta music was from my Kobo, so now I need to pick a physical book. So I've got the cup again here, and let me just grab them. They are on different colored paper slips, so that's how I can tell. There we go. That's not from my physical TBR. That one is. And this is, yay, it's Notes from an Island, which I was really excited to read. Oh, it's right here. So if you've seen my latest haul video, this is one of the books that I got in London, and this is Notes from an Island by Tove Jansson Tuulikki Pietila. Still haven't looked up how to pronounce her last name. This is translated from the Swedish by Thomas Teal. They are Finnish authors, but they are from the Swedish speaking part of Finland. And this is a memoir specifically about their time living in a cabin on an island, and they had a cabin built on like an island off the coast of Finland, and they like spent their summers there, so it's like their summer holiday cabin, and they've had that for, I think it was 26 years. They are an artist couple. Tove is a writer. She is probably most famous for the Moomin books, and then Tuulikki is a visual artist. I think she does drawings and stuff like that. Last year I read Fair Play by Tove Jansson, which was basically an autofiction book about their relationship, and this, I guess, is the memoir version, and I loved Fair Play, so I'm super excited to read this one. So I have finished Notes from an Island, and I had such a joyful time with this. I read this pretty much in one day. It's only like 120 pages, but it's also just a very quick read. It's not like a full-on memoir. It's told in a chronological order, but it consists of diary entries and musings when Tove and Tutti first came to the island. They had the help of this kind of loner rebel kind of seaman who helped them build their cabin on the island, and we also read extracts from I guess you'd call it a captain's log of sort, but also in the parts where Tove has these kind of longer musings. Her writing style is still very sparse and to the point and precise. There is not one word too many in her writing. And then there's also a lot of these watercolors that Tutti made. And yes, I did look up how to pronounce Tuulikki Pietila's name, but she is referred to as Tutti throughout the book. So I will be so bold to do that as well and make my life a little bit easier. She has these really beautiful artworks throughout the book. Yeah, it's a real collaboration between two artists and partners. It also said in the two blurbs of the two artists that Tutti also made a movie of her life with Tove on the island called Haru, the Island of the Solitary, and I have found some snippets of that on YouTube, so I will definitely watch those later. Yeah, like I said, I have felt such joy when reading this, but I do think it's best to pair it with one of Tove's fiction books. You know, some memoirs stand really well on their own, and you don't really need to be interested in the artist or the writer's work to enjoy their memoirs. But I think for this you'll probably appreciate it a lot more if you have read some of Tove's work. And vice versa, I think now having read this, I would really love to revisit the two books by Tove Jansson that I've read, which are The Summer Book and Fair Play, and also, you know, explore more of her other writing. Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is that more than the book itself, I really loved the idea of Tove and Tutti having spent their summers on this island, on this barren bit of rock in the sea, living side by side, making art whilst facing the elements and, you know, being in a constant battle with seagulls. And this book made me a witness, or like gave me little snapshots of their life on the island, and it just makes me very happy to know that they were content in their solitude together and that they thrived on this island. So yeah, that was Notes from an Island. By the way, the cover, the illustration on the cover is a drawing that Tove's mom did of the island, to do a map of the island, which I thought was a really lovely detail as well. Yeah, let's pick another book. Got my cup right here again, and I'm gonna pick a book. There we go, and that is The Faster I Walk, the Smaller I Am, which is one of the Women in Translation books that I've had on my TBR for a very, very long time. I think the author's name is Kjersti Skomsvold, something like that. She's Norwegian, and I remember that Jen Campbell has mentioned this book on her channel a couple of times. At least that's where I got the recommendation. So yeah, that will be my next book. So I have finished The Faster I Walk, the Smaller I Am. It was only a small book, so it didn't take very long, although I did have a pretty bad headache the last couple of days, so I hardly read anything, but that's entirely beside the point. I'm going to talk about the book now. This was by Kjersti Skomsvold, and it was translated from the Norwegian by Kerri A. So it's about this elderly lady called Mathea, and she is very preoccupied with death, and in particular her own death. Her husband has passed away years ago, and when she reads obituaries in the newspaper, they are all of people who were younger than her, so she's very much aware that basically she's gonna go at any day now. But she keeps on living, obviously. There's this one great line actually in the book, and I'm paraphrasing her here, where she said something along the lines of, you know, and then it's morning again and I just feel so hungry. So yeah, she just keeps on living her day-to-day life. So she thinks a lot about death, and with that also about her legacy. She feels like she's quite an unremarkable person. She's afraid of, like, you know, what if I'm that kind of person who dies and then no one realizes after 2 weeks, and only because it starts to smell they will know I've died. So she's kind of in a hurry to make her mark on the world, but she also has social anxiety, so she wants to connect with other people, but not too much. So she keeps on thinking about, like, things she could do. You know, like, she has this plan to go out wearing her husband's watch, and then if people ask for the time, she could give it to them, and then she would be a contributing member of society. I really loved getting to know Mathea. I thought she was pretty funny, actually, with this very dry sense of humor. You know, those people that at first come off as a bit quiet or serious or boring, but then you get to know them a bit better, and then they turn out to be quite funny and quite sharp in a very unexpected way. Yeah, I feel like I could get along really well with her, and I think that contrasts with knowing that she has this social anxiety, and she has lived a life where, besides her husband, she has had very little contact with other people. It feels quite tragic. I just felt such sadness that there is this really delightful person that never really got a chance to shine. I feel like possibly she has some neurodiverse traits. It doesn't get explicitly mentioned, but just the way she thinks and sees the world makes me wonder about that. yeah, I wish she could have had some people in her life that like understood her and appreciated her for who she was, and you know, just have like a hype club to boost up her confidence and let her thrive. I did think the second half of the book was a bit weaker for me. The plot started to jump around in time, and I got a little bit confused about where we were in time sometimes. I feel like maybe it was the point of the author to make the narrator a bit unreliable. Like maybe she was suffering from dementia, so she mixed up memories and real life, and maybe that was the point of the book. You know, she's trying to do something with that, but it didn't really came across very well. So yeah, my interest in the book definitely waned towards the end, but I still really loved yeah, getting to know our main character, Martea. Yeah, I just really liked her. So yeah, there's that. I'm gonna pick another book now, and like you can see, I have positioned myself in front of my bookshelves again because I'm gonna pick one from here. Again, I've got the cup right here. I thought one jumped out, but it didn't. So let's see. That's not from my TBR. And this one is. Right. This is the Dutch book, so I'm gonna grab it. It's this one. This is called Dit zou allemaal van jou kunnen zijn, or roughly translates as all of this could be yours. And it's by Josefine Klougart. And this is translated from the Danish. And what I know about this, that it's kind of a big family saga, and it has a strong aspect of nature writing. So yeah, sounds right up my street. It is a bit bigger. That's not actually that big. It looks bigger than it is. It is about 320 pages. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting into this one. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on this book. I'm on page 86, so about a quarter of the way in, and I'm really enjoying this a lot, but it's definitely a slow kind of book. It's about two sisters, Barbara and Sarah, and their parents, Sonia and Eric. Their parents both grew up in unsafe, or at least uncertain environments. Sonia grew up in poverty, and Eric had a alcoholic father, and it's about how that shaped their lives, how they took that with them when they had their own children, how they both had very strong ideas on what kind of environment they wanted to create for themselves and for their children, to grow up in, and how that worked out for Barbara and Sarah. So yeah, it's a book that's very strong on family dynamics and history, and like a multi-generational healing process that this family is going through, which is something I love reading about, but it's definitely not something to be rushed through. I really love the writing in this. It is very descriptive, which I know is not for everyone. Maybe it would be too flowery for some, but I'm really enjoying this. It kind of forces me to slow down. There's a lot of beautiful descriptions of like the light and what something sounds like, and the color of flowers and stuff like that.
it's almost like the author draws you into a certain scene, and then draws your attention to all these details, and I think that makes it really beautifully vivid. Barbara and Sarah grew up on a house in or near a national park in Denmark, and then Sonja, their mother, she grew up on a farm, so there's a lot of nature writing. It's a beautiful rural setting, and when I'm reading this book, it reminds me maybe of like looking at paintings when you take your time to take in the small details. Yeah, it has a very mindful and meditative quality to the book, which I'm really enjoying right now. Right, I have decided to DNF this book, not because it was a bad book. I was actually really quite enjoying it, especially at the beginning, but I do think that this book is just too long, and I think I've gotten everything out of it, what it has to offer. You know, if this book was half its size, it would have been way more impactful. The problem for me was that the story switches perspective quite a lot. Like sometimes each paragraph will be from a different perspective, or it will switch in time, or both, and it's just very hard to keep track of where you are. So I found it difficult to find a real connection to any of the characters, or to really follow the plot of the book. I do think the writing is stunning, and I think all of these paragraphs and sentences and just those snippets together create a really good picture of what life was like in rural Denmark and for this family, but it just lacks a real focus, and I don't think it's enough to keep the story going for, I think this book was 326 pages. So yeah, I'm gonna stop reading this. I got to page 250, so I didn't have a lot left of this book, so you know, some people might say, why would you DNF it if you only have you know, about this much left, but I don't think reading on, finishing the book, will add more to the experience of this book. So yeah, that's that. I'm gonna pick one more book now. There's my cup. I'm gonna pick one more book now. It's only a few days left until the end of August, so I'm not gonna read anything too long. There is a few chunky books in here, so if I end up picking one of those, I'll pick again. But yeah, let's pick one more book. Let's go for that one. And this is another book from my shelf. What will it take for me to leave? And that's right here, which is a short story collection, and I'm pretty excited about this because it's a book from Malta, which is a country I've never read from before. So I have finished What Will It Take for Me to Leave, and this was actually really good, and I didn't really see it coming. I mean, I just picked this up because I was like, ooh, yellow, and the blurb was kind of nondescript, but it was a book from Malta, which I'd never read anything from before. So I was like, okay, I'll take my chance, not really having any expectations. But this turns out to be a really good short story collections. So this is written by Loranne Vella and is translated by Kat Storace from the Maltese. And like I said, these are short stories, and they are all very short stories. Some of them are almost like prose poetry, like not even a page long, and then I think the longest story was like 7 or 8 pages. And I think these stories were all so well crafted. In my last video I talked about that I think a good short story always has a narrative arc, and there's a point to a good story, and the collection I was reading then kind of lacked that. These, however, are all prime examples of stories that each have a point to make. Like in a collection, they explore similar themes, but they can each stand on their own as well. They're all stories about very mundane and familiar things. Like there is a story about a person talking about where and how he likes to drink his coffee. Another one where a person is just getting ready for the day and just going through their skincare routine, which sounds a little bit boring, but the author puts in this slight dark undertone, and she just knows exactly what to reveal and what to keep unsaid, in a way that just really fascinates me. These are all stories about what goes on behind closed doors, what things we show the world and what things do we keep private. How do we want other people to perceive us, and how do we control that? And you can just read these stories for what they are, just what's happening on the page. And for me it also took 1 or 2 stories to notice, like, hey, wait a minute, there is more to this than meets the eye. And it really turns out that these stories are quite rich and nuanced. There's also photographs throughout the book, which I thought really added to the story as well. Like this one, for example. And this one. I was just really very impressed by this book. I will read one more book for this vlog, but I did already pick what I wanted to read, because I really wanted to join in with Nicole of Noteworthy Fictions read-along that she's hosting this weekend. She always does these day-long live reading sprints on her channel pretty much every week. I can rarely join in because they are on a Monday, and that's pretty much the busiest day of the week for me. And you know, with the different time zones, it just never really works out for me to watch them live. I sometimes use them as like reading and productivity sprints later in the week, but it's not the same, being able to join in with the chat live. But now she's hosting this special edition on a Saturday, so I can join in at least for a bit. And she has asked everyone to bring a book published in the year you were born. Now the book I picked was actually, or is actually a year younger than me, but I also wanted to stay in the women in translation theme, so this was the closest I could get. and that is Sphinx by Garréta. This is translated from the French by Emma Ramadan, and it was published in 1986, so now you all know how old I am. And this is an erotic journalist love story that delves into the nightclubs and cabarets of after-hours Paris. And it's only like 120 pages, so I think that would be perfect for an evening of reading, I'd say. So I have finished Sphinx by Garréta, and I think I enjoyed this, but I'm not quite sure. So one thing that intrigued me about this book is that the author was or is a member of the Tuulikki group, which is like an exclusive writers collective that you can only join by invitation, and their thing is basically that they write books with some sort of constraint. The most easy to explain example is that one of them wrote a book without the letter E. So they kind of explore linguistics by putting a constraint on their writing and then see what the possibilities are. And in this book the constraint was to write a book where the main characters are genderless. So for both the protagonist and the love interest, it's never revealed what gender they are. And I really valued the translator's note in this book, because they explain that French is quite a gendered language. So, for example, in some tenses, the verb will change depending on whether a male or a female is the subject. But then nouns can be gendered as well, and it doesn't matter if they belong to a male or a female, they keep the gender of the word. But it means that the author and also the translator had to work around this. And the result is that the language really stands out in this novel. I think it's beautifully written, it feels original and it feels fresh. I really enjoyed the word choice and the way sentences are structured, but also it still flows quite naturally. To me, it doesn't feel gimmicky or stilted, which I think could be a trap when playing around with a language like that. But I do think the story in itself was kind of lacking. The plot is a basic love story, as in two people meet, they fall in love, and things happen in their relationship. Obviously, it's interesting that it is genderless because you can kind of fill it in any way you want. I personally read it as a gay romance, but I didn't really care for their relationship. I feel like because the love interest didn't really get a voice in this story, we only saw them through the eyes of the protagonist and never in like direct conversation. Only when they were like thinking about them or looking at them or talking about them. So their relationship felt very one-sided and unequal, and more like an obsession. And also there was an age difference, and the protagonist was white and the love interest was black, and then to only give the white protagonist a voice felt a bit uncomfortable to me. Then there were also some plot points that were weird for me, like they didn't really make any sense and felt like they were just put in to move the story forward. For example, right in the beginning of the book, a death occurs. I don't think that in itself is a spoiler, but I won't go into the details of what exactly happens. But this death sets in motion a sequence of events which
eventually mean that our protagonist becomes a DJ at a Paris nightclub, and that is where they meet their love interest, and then this death is never talked about ever again. I mean, surely you can think of another way that would make this our protagonist a DJ at this club without it being preceded by some kind of weird death scene. And there's a few more moments in the book where the plot kind of feels forced, which I don't think are due to the constraints of the linguistics. All in all, I lean more towards the positive because I love a book that does something interesting, but I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. So that's a wrap on Women in Translation Month. I consider it a success, even though I ended up DNFing 3 out of the 9 books I started. My favorites, I think, would be What Will It Take for Me to Leave and Notes from an Island. And I think generally I really enjoyed reading on a theme for a month, and I like picking the books as I go. It really feels like I found something that works for me reading wise and also booktube wise. So I hope you enjoy it, because I'm going to continue in the same vein for a while. So now I'm going to move into September, which is obviously shorty September, and that kind of feels like a soft transition because translated fiction and short fiction have quite a lot of overlap. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.